Welcome back, dear learners. Before the ad break, I spoke of prime cost. And in prime cost, we had direct labor cost and direct material cost. Let's start with direct material cost. What is this? These are all raw materials used in the manufacturing process. So you have to know that when we are producing goods, we need raw materials. And we have what are known as direct raw materials. So these are raw materials that are used in producing the units that we are producing. It becomes part of the final product. In other words, these raw materials get into the final product. For example, if we're making a shoe, we will need leather. So the leather material becomes our direct material cost. You can see in the unit of production, when you see the shoe, you can see the leather. So that leather becomes the direct material cost. What is used and what is very important for us to produce the units. That is our direct material cost. We also have what are known as indirect material cost. Indirect. So you can see the difference here. The first one was direct material cost. The next one is indirect material cost. It is any other materials not directly linked to a final product, but these are necessary in the manufacturing process. For example, cleaning materials. We know that when we are producing shoes, we are producing them in a factory, remember? And the direct material is the leather. But there are indirect materials, such as your cleaning materials. We need the factory to remain clean. So you can see that the cleaning materials are not in the shoe. Are we together? So we call them indirect materials. Any other materials that are not directly linked to a final product. That is what we then call our indirect materials. We will now calculate our direct material cost. We have information which reads, 1 pair of shoes will need 0.6 meters of leather material. So what it simply means is for us to produce a pair, we don't need the full 1 meter, we need only 0.6 meters of leather material. The material cost per meter of leather is 1,400. So 1 meter is costing 1,400. The business produces 10 pairs of shoes per week. Calculate the direct material cost for the week. Let's do the calculations. 1,400 is the cost per meter, but we don't need the entire meter. We only need 0.6 for each pair. So we'll now say 1,400 rands multiplied by 0.6. That will give you 840 rands per pair of shoes. All right? So we will not use the entire 1,400 because our shoe requires only 0.6 meters. Now, we then say, as I've said, 1,400 times 0.6, that gives you 840 per pair of shoes. If it costs us 840 per pair of shoes, and we are told that we are going to produce 10 pairs per week, how much is the material cost per week then? We then say 840 per pair times the number of pairs, 10 pairs. That gives us 8,400. That becomes the direct material cost for us to produce 10 pairs of shoes for the week. Very important that you understand the way we have calculated this figure. We started off with the material cost per meter. We don't need a meter, we only need 0.6. So it will be 840. Then we say the 840 times the number of pairs. Then we end up with 8,400 rands. Direct and indirect labor. We start with direct labor. What is direct labor cost? It is the wages of employees who are directly involved in the manufacturing process. Directly involved in the manufacturing process. For example, the cutters or the workers shaping the leather for the leather shoes. So the employees who are providing directly, but their hands have to be on the product. As you can see here, the hands are on the shoes. They are touching the material directly. They are working directly with the product. Once employees are working directly on the product that we're producing, we call that direct labor cost. Direct labor cost. But we also have what is known as indirect labor cost. Indirect labor cost, this is the cost of employees who are not directly involved in the manufacturing process. They are not directly involved in the manufacturing process. For example, wages for the factory supervisor or cleaners. As you can see, in the first instance, we had the person who had their hands on the pair of shoes. But in this case, on the indirect labor, their hands are not on the pair of shoes. They are cleaning the floors. So they are not directly linked to the pair of shoes. So we then call that indirect labor cost. Indirect labor cost. We're going to do some calculations now. The information reads, the company has 4 workers that work on making the shoes. Very important. 4 workers. Each worker works 8 hours a day and have a 5-day week. The employees are paid wages of 20 Rand per hour. Calculate the direct labor cost for the week. We want to know how much is the direct labor cost for the week. Let's begin. We have 4 employees, 4 workers that are working on the shoes. They are making the shoes. That means they have their hands on the shoes. Direct labor. So there are 4 employees. Each worker works 8 hours a day. So each worker is working 8 hours per day, as you can see there. Therefore, the total number of hours that are being worked is 32 hours. All right? So 4 employees, 8 hours per day, 32 hours in total per day. Then I say my 32 hours in total per day multiplied, because they're working a 5-day week, multiplied by 5 days. That gives you 160 hours. This is the total number of hours per week, 160 hours. We are told that the employees are paid wages of 20 Rand per hour. So we then say 160 hours that have been worked in the week multiplied by the rate of 20 Rand per hour. How much are we going to pay at the end of the week? You get 3,200. That therefore becomes your direct labor cost. Dear learners, let's go for an ad break, and I'll see you shortly.